Good good morning or good afternoon. This is Kurt Hickson speaking. Get my clicker working real quick. One second. All right, sorry about that. So this is Kurt Hickson speaking. I'm the sales director for Central Region here at Altec, and with me today is Igor Kras. He is one of our sales engineers at Altec, and we'll be presenting together on a little bit of DocLink and how we can help out with this new life we're all leading, working remote, it seems. So what I wanted to do quickly is throughout the presentation a couple times, I want to just take a quick poll, kind of make this a little interactive for everybody involved. And the polling isn't working just correctly today. So what I'm going to ask is if you could use your chat function on the GoToMeeting, and within there, I'd like to see if anyone could respond to this question here. And the poll question right now is, how are you storing your documents, right? So I have a couple different options there. Just wanted to see how folks are managing their documents today, and we can kind of speak to it a little bit more. So again, if you could use the chat function within the GoToMeeting, that'd be great. We'll give people a couple minutes here. It looks like we have someone, we got an A, and I see a C, so that's good. Don't want to take too much time here, but thanks for the folks that did participate in that. So let's get moving on here. So currently, as you all know, we're all experiencing this, right? We're all working remote presently, and I'm pretty sure this number is probably more than double. But really, the idea here is there's a lot of folks that are, in the non-essential situation that are adjusting to that remote full-time scenario, right? So what we want to do is we want to be able to, make a new normal from working remote. And ways of doing that is utilizing tools like DocLink, right? So we're going to talk about where we can fill in the gaps, because I guarantee you're probably experiencing some gaps today as soon as you started working remote, not being able to access information, things like that. And this is probably triggering your organization to reevaluate your current solutions you have in place and see where you can expand upon those. So that's what we want to talk about today, really, is we want to touch on why go touchless, right? We're going to talk about DocLink, with DocLink and accounts payable, how we can impact other departments. We are an enterprise-wide solution, and then customer successes, right? I want to kind of wrap up with that and paint a pretty picture for you in terms of other areas we can help out with. So really what we're going to be touching on today is this fact, right? Digital transformation. Even before the COVID-19 issues have come about, digital transformation has been taking place for a while now. Probably I would say for the last 18 to 12 months, you've probably heard this term thrown out quite a few times. And it's just really, at this point, it's a more and more telltale sign that if you haven't joined the digital transformation, you're falling behind, and you're falling behind fast. So organizations that have taken the leap and started moving towards this digital transformation are probably in a better position today than the folks that haven't. And so what we want to do is we want to get you in line with these other folks that have taken on the transformation and continue down that path. And the way we do that is we want to be able to connect you with your processes and your data. And whether that originates within the ERP or even outside, we can handle that. What that allows us to do is streamline your processes, right? So we can give your operations team, AP, whomever they might be, greater access, visibility, control over documents and data, right? So we know where everything is at any given time, and we have multiple ways to access that information with a couple clicks of a button, which is great, especially when you're working remote. And then we have the ability to, deliver documents in a timely manner to partners, customers, and we can do this in an automated fashion. So this is what digital transformation means for us in the document management world. So now what I want to do is speak a little bit more on how it works, kind of at a 10,000-foot overview here, just give you a quick example. or rundown, if you will. So at its core, DocLink is a standalone document repository. So what that means is we want to capture documents or data as they come into the organization or as they're created. So the external documents coming in, we use, scan captures. We use, more robust captures such as optical character recognition. We have some automated import, barcode, email, etc. For internal documents, we can simply just do some print captures, things like that, and bring those indexed by that data directly into DocLink. And then what happens from there is it allows the process to take over, right? Any document that comes into the organization or that's created, again, typically has a business process attached to that, whether it's driven by data. We can use workflow to dictate where that document needs to go, if there's approvals, or maybe there's just a visibility, or maybe it's just a next place to go in terms of the process of the business flow, right? We have capabilities of, creating forms within DocLink. So we can create configurable windows within DocLink to get rid of any paper-based forms, right? The idea here is to get rid of that paper and really focus on the data, right? Because that's what drives your business. And we can do this in a streamlined manner with process. Because everything is in a repository and it's fully indexed by the data on those documents, you have the ability to retrieve that, of course. So we have three primary ways of retrieving that information. The first is going to be a web client, which everybody needs nowadays. The second is a smart client, which is our desktop application. And the third is going to be the mobile app. And again, this is great for the folks that are on the road or in current times right now where, you're multitasking, right? You're working from your kitchen. You have your phone next to you, your laptop next to you. You can jump on the mobile app. You can jump on a web client, find information, approve documents as you will. Just due to the times, this helps. And then we have delivery, right? As I mentioned, all this information is stored in this repository, so there should be no reason as to why we can't deliver these documents, right? And so we can do this in an automated fashion, but typically we'll send these out via email. We'll package the documents up. Maybe it's a customer invoice or PO. Maybe you need to attach a signed bill of lading with that as well. We can put those documents together and send it out, right? And it can be in an automated fashion, which is great. And then last but not least, we are constantly talking to the ERP, right? So we're constantly talking to the ERP because this is your accounting system of record. We're not trying to replace the accounting system of record by any means. We want to build upon that investment and make it stronger and make it more streamlined. And so that's what DocLink does. You can also, with our integration in terms of retrieving, you can actually retrieve documents directly from the ERP as well that reside in DocLink. Did want to mention that, and Igor will show a little bit of that when we get to the demo portion of today's presentation. So one other quick poll question here. Don't want to read these out, but you can go ahead and let me know if some of these are challenges or pain points or what come across you on a daily basis, right? I'll give everybody a minute here to throw a quick answer in the chat. Great. Looks like we have a couple B's, so that's good. 1A. All right. And let's go ahead and move on here. So go touchless opportunities, right? I think for the most part, we're always, when we're talking about document management and our relation to the ERP, we're always going to talk about starting in accounts payable because it's low-hanging fruit for us, right? Because of that integration, because there's a lot of documents in AP, and we'll talk about that more here in a moment. I think accounting managers and controller, that kind of falls under that same umbrella as the AP, but other areas are going to be accounts receivable, because we can use that delivery aspect, and then we also want to talk about human resources a little bit. We'll just talk more on examples of the output and the human resources components. For today's presentation or demo portion, we're going to focus mostly on AP. And the reason for that is, again, as I mentioned, is there's just a lot of paper in AP, right? It's easy to understand. It's easy for us to get rid of. It's an easy win across the board. And then we can expand beyond that. So the reason why we do that is we can give people, once we get rid of that paper and we have it in a centralized location, that is DocLink, you give self-service access to documents, right? So now managers can log into DocLink. They can see if a check was cut or a document needs to be approved. So they have that self-access, feel that they don't have in real life, right? If they're not using a document management solution, they have the timely approvals where they can go ahead and simply approve a document straight from their mobile device or straight from an email. They can even apply coding or even notes to that as well. We have, minimizing data entry, and we want to eliminate any filings. We're getting rid of paper altogether. And again, when we minimize data entry, we're trying to get rid of it as much as possible. And we're going to reuse a lot of that data. So with integration, we can reuse a lot of data within the ERP. But this all helps with the accounts payable aspect, right? So that's why we focus initially on the onset of AP, because A, it makes a lot of sense. Because you're typically dealing with typical situations like this shown on the screen, right? This is a quick example of an AP process, right? And why AP automation makes sense. So your AP process probably has anywhere between, 12, maybe 10 steps in it, right? If there's matching involved, discrepancies, things like that, there's a lot of workflows or business process that takes place with manual paper. So if you want to automate this, what we want to do is we want to reduce it. We want to reduce it by more than half, and we can easily do this, and it approves efficiencies and control along the way, right? So we want to take something like this, right? We want to make it look more like this. Eliminate those manual, mundane tasks and make this more streamlined. And the benefits show. So if we can cut this down to a 3 or 4 step process, when you're processing AP invoices, you're going to be much happier. Giving people access to documents, they're going to be much happier. They're not going to have to bother anybody. Approving documents seamlessly through email or mobile is going to make everybody's life easier. So there are a lot of benefits as to why we start an AP. And what I want to do now is I want to hand it over to Igor, and he's going to actually walk through a couple AP scenarios on a non-POPO scenario base, and then he'll hand it back to me after, and we will wrap things up. But Igor, I'll hand it over to you now.
Perfect. Thank you, Kurt. So as Kurt mentioned, the entire journey today is going to start at accounts payable invoices side, and we need to capture them. We need to get them to the system first. And this is the main task that is tedious. Might be because there are a lot of emails that you receive, maybe because you have a lot of paper documents that you process. And we can address both of these matters at the same time. So a very common method is that a dedicated email address is set where users can send their invoices to email address, let's say invoices at invoices.com or your company name.com, where all invoices from all of your suppliers are funneled into. And in that process, we are going to automatically register attachments to emails. And it can be multiple attachments. They can be in different formats. It can be PDFs, the one that you can see on the screen right now, or maybe TIFF files, right? So all of them will arrive to the same email address. And as a service, we're going to work on the background and capture those and bring them into the workflow where we're going to apply optical character recognition and intelligently extract data from these documents. Now, for those of you who still have, and this is the most ideal scenario because in this process, users doesn't participate. Email is set, emails are received, we pull attachments as a service automatically. Perfect. Users are not touching that process at all. If you have an instance when you still need to deal with paper documents, we can still handle that. So, for example, on the right-hand side right here, we have a folder, which we call a hot folder, from where we are going to register all incoming paper documents that people scan in, right? So if you still have paper documents, you would take 2, 3, 5, whatever number of them are out there, put them on the hopper of a scanner and hit the scan button, and they will land in the folder. So what I did now is the simulation of the scanning process. Somebody generated that scan batch, they landed in the folder, and as you can see right now, these images have been picked up and also brought into the optical character recognition process. And what OCR does, it digitizes all of these documents, applies the extraction logic, and applies business rules. So we can dramatically reduce the amount of clicks you need to spend to process a batch of invoices. All exception cases are going to arrive into interface you can see on the screen right now, which is called verification station. And what basically happens is that if there is an exception on a document in a batch that you submitted, for example, maybe vendor was not identified, or the invoice is a duplicate, or the three-way match failed, or any other business rule violations that you set and enforce through the accounts payable process, it's going to arrive for user verification to address these kind of issues. If there are no business rule violations, you will not see documents here. They will flow directly for GL coding and approval, bypassing this step. This means that the OCR will extract the data for you. If everything's correct, it's going to flow straight through without user intervention. So in the ideal scenario, as I showed earlier, if you're registering from an email, from the moment the email with an invoice arrives to the moment that is ready to be coded and approved, there may be no user steps involved at all. So let's see the batch that we submitted just a moment ago. We have a batch 69 of 2 documents, so I'm going to click on that and open it. So quick introduction to the interface itself. So on the right-hand side, we have the image, and the image is fully digitized. This means that, for example, if I select the due date as the block that doesn't have any value and point to the due date field right there, what we have is that I have a hint on top of my mouse cursor indicating what I'm looking for. It's a due date, and I have a value that I'm pointing to. So this fact that the image is fully digitized dramatically reduces the amount of time you need to spend on populating any of the fields, any of the data that's supposed to be extracted from the images, by simply pointing and clicking on them, eliminating necessity for keying these values. So if I point and click on due date right now, as you can see, it is immediately populated into the field. Couple of other things happen when our optical character recognition engine OCR applies the logic. First of all, we automatically identify if it's a PO or non-PO invoice, and the criteria there is very, very straightforward. You already probably guessed that's the presence or absence of the PO number. When we have the PO number, that's a clear indication for us that that's the PO invoice, and we need to apply the PO-based logic, which is the next document right here. As you can see, the profile changes, extraction field change, and now we can see that the system not only is smart enough to automatically extract for you header and footer details from the document, but is also smart enough to extract header, footer, and line item details. So when we select any of the fields, we can easily see where the data came from. For example, I selected the total. We have the total right there on the bottom. If I select subtotal, it will move on the top. And if, for example, if we move to the table, let's say to our line items right here, we'll see where the line items are coming from. So system has preset logic that extracts the data for you and then applies the business rules. You can change them. They are configurable. Therefore, if the system doesn't, in this demonstration, do exactly what you do in your accounts payable process, it's not a big deal. It can be configured and tailored to your business needs. As I mentioned, a variety of business rules are applied. And on an example of the three-way match error, I would like to demonstrate to you how the errors look like. So in this instance, we can see that we have a three-way match violation. And if I click on the information for this business rule, we can see the indication that system doesn't find the PO number and could not validate the part number for us. And if we look closely to this, we can see that one of the character 0 was recognized as O, actually vice versa. 0 was recognized as O was recognized as 0. So, and if we correct that, I made the correction quickly there and hit enter, the errors disappear, and now this batch is almost completed. Last thing that the users would need to do is to verify questionable characters. So depends on the number of, depends on the quality of the images you are working with. Some of the characters may not be what they appear to be. So users would need to confirm that. And this goes back to the fact that it's way better to work with digital documents that sent to you via email, because they would have way less questionable characters among them. And now the batch is ready to go, and I'm going to send it to the next step, which is going to be the step in the document management for review, coding, approval, and export to the ERP. So I hit send, and now let's go to the DocLink depository to look how the approval and GL coding processes would look like. Now, as Kurt mentioned, DocLink is the place to automate all your document lifecycles. And the workflows that we have in our demo environment is a very good representation of that. So I'm in the workflow tab right now, and if we have a glance right here, we can see that in addition to the accounts payable processing workflow, I have multitude of other workflows that cover other areas of business. And same goes with the search for different documents. If I go to advanced inquiry, now we can see that we have way beyond AP different document types that are being stored in the environment. Therefore, DocLink builds you the foundation to go 100% digital if that's your choice. Not only automate your accounts payable, for example, accounts receivable processes, but take it company-wide for every aspect of every department. But as we are processing AP right now, let's take a step back to the workflow and look at our unprocessed queue. We have an unprocessed queue right here of our accounts payable processing workflow, and see the queue, how it looks like, and GL code and send documents for approval. So I'm going to hit search to initiate searching for files, and let's sort them by date. I want to see the documents, the latest one on the very top right there. So we have a couple of files that arrive from today right here, and this is the common queue of documents that are pending to be reviewed in the accounts payable queue. These are specifically accounts payable invoices, but if that would have been a different document type, we would see that different document type name. And we are interested in let's process the non-PO that we have right here. So I'll select my non-PO invoice and open it in our viewer. So viewer is opening the invoice for us. And from here, from this interface, users typically do the assignment of the GL accounts, for example, and then sending for approval lifecycle. So first things first, so I'm going to create the GL distribution stamp. And this is done in most cases in two ways. The first one is going to be creation of the brand new stamp, when users will just hit, create a new stamp and create everything from scratch. Another option is to use a template. If you know that it's a recurring purchase, you can create a template that you use for this vendor every single time and apply it when the distribution is created. So let me use a stamp for us in this example. A couple of things happen automatically. We break down the charges based on the typical distribution for this vendor, and we are ready immediately after that, create a distribution stamp. So our account codes, accounts lookup right here, these are the lookups directly into the ERP. So if I need to add additional line, I'll hit add. And these squares right here, these are the lookups that I can use. So if I hit on a square, I have the list of the GL account codes that I have access to. And it goes without saying that depends on your department, you may need to shrink this list. For example, I'm in the AP, I'm only working with 400 and 500 GL account codes. No problem, this list can be filtered, and members of that department can be restricted specifically to these GL account allocations, and a variety of other filters can be applied. And if we need to add additional line, you already probably guessed, I just need to select that specific type of line and give it allocation. As my invoice is already distributed, right there, we can see that distribution has been completed. I cannot add additional lines right there. So in this instance, I'll just select it and remove it. But you got the idea. You add in the lines, you're distributing them along different accounts using templates or creating the lines from scratch. And now you're ready to create a distribution stamp. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to hit stamp and create my distribution that I can send for approval, for review and approval. So I'm going to hit stamp. And what DocLink does, it creates the second page. And this second page effectively removes our archaic, like the rubber stamp that you would stamp on a document, right? The physical one. It consists of everything we need. We have our distribution amounts, we have our distribution codes. We of course have the audit, who done it. I am as admin, I created this stamp, we have the dates, all this information. And all this data is going to go to the approver, who's supposed to approve it. Approving process can be flexible when users can select who's supposed to look at this document. For example, right now, I have a liberty to select the destination for approvers workflow, or it can be strict, where users just select send for approval status, and based on the values from the document, based on actual values, the system is going to automatically route it to different people in the queue. For example, depends on total amounts. Everything more than $10,000 supposed to go to CFO. Everything more than $50,000 supposed to go to the board. Any GL account codes related to charity is supposed to go to that specific department. So all of these actual trackable values and properties from documents that we store and retrieve can be used as triggers to route for approver automatically, taking that necessity from users, effectively eliminating the human error factor. In our example, I'm going to send it to IT manager and hit send. Now, a couple of things happen. Automatically, the next document pops up that's waiting in the queue for us to review. And system sends an automatic email notification via email about the approval requirement. So approval is very often done via email. So let me receive the email right now. And we can see that in our approval queue right now, emails have arrived. So a couple of things happened. We have an email received for IT manager, and there is an attached invoice right there. We have base data tokens right here, and we have approve and deny buttons, right? This is very common method of approving, where users, for example, can go ahead, open the invoice itself, look at the second page, the distribution that we created, and make this decision. They technically have all necessary kind of things at their fingertips, right? They have all this information available for them. If necessary, they can use another type of link where you can launch the workflow, kind of go back to the client and maybe research that document in more details. It depends on how you like to do. Or these emails can be combined, where this email actually has a link to the workflow, right? It all depends on how you would like to approach the approval process. So in this instance, I'm going to hit approve, and I'm going to give a note. Notes in my workflow are optional, but I'll give a note, pay ASAP. So I would like this to be processed as soon as possible. And submit the note and send document through the approvals. Now, the document has, this invoice has been approved, it has been GL coded, it's ready to be exported. And if we don't need to rush this, this invoice, we're done. The person who approved, we don't have a secondary approval here, we're done, right? Because same as with document registration, DocLink runs a service to automatically export all approved documents on schedule to the ERP system. Right, so very simple, pick up everything in approved status, move it to ready for import, and presto, you're ready to go. But in this example that we processed today, I would like also to demonstrate you another method when we need to rush something, when we need to push this document to GP right now. And in this example, what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go to the probably very interface, very familiar for everybody, we are going to go ahead and open our purchases in Microsoft Dynamics GP, and we are going to open our payables transaction entry screen right here. So this is where we can push the documents that we need to import immediately, not wait for the schedule to move it, because maybe you need to rush it, right? You cannot wait till the end of the day, for example, or let's say your schedule is every 2 days or every 3 days to export all documents as batches. So what we can do, we can open our screen of the workflow where we have all documents ready to go, right? And from here, we can go ahead and select our associated status, find the document that is pending in our queue. That's the one that we need. And while open this document, a couple of things I would like to point. So we have our invoice that we would like to import. It has the approval notes for our IT manager, right? We've done that via email. These notes, they are permanent. They're going to stay with the document forever, right? So these are the auditable trail that would stay and will be presented with the document all the time. So approval notes and the information notes can be created, as you can see, from an email, or you can use this interface when you are in the workflow. Temporary notes can be put, for example, as a sticky note. You can just dump it anywhere, and it will be a temporary note that can be there for whatever time is necessary for you when the note is needed. And you can later delete it. So these are just information notes, the sticky notes that you can use. And now I'm ready to import. So it's very simple. This document needs to go now. It's overdue. We need to pay the SAP. I can easily go ahead, hit import right there. And now what's going to happen, our transaction is going to be exported into GP. So as you can see, our distribution is being imported as we speak on a click. It's very simple, very robust process, and it's very simple to send it when you need to rush anything through the system, as you can see. So this is the end-to-end process between the ERP and DocLink document management. As you can see, it's a closed cycle. We are using the vendor master file for invoices data to allocate, to identify vendors. We are using the GL account codes from the ERP as well. So all of that is a complete sealed cycle with a two-way integration. And when the transaction is completed, and when users need to go back and users need to retrieve documents of any specific nature, we can go ahead and open any of the batches, any of the invoices, and from here users can later on use the view documents button to go back to historical documents that have been processed before. So all of that is available with the two-way integration that DocLink provides. And at all time, you have full control over these processes, how they work, what kind of steps supposed to be taken, who's supposed to have access, and what kind of level of audit and responsibility is supposed to be applied to it. With that said, let me turn this over back to Kurt.
All right, thank you, Igor. And great presentation there, great demonstration on the AP functionality. What I want to do now is kind of continue upon the conversation of other areas that DocLink can help impact the organization, right? Because there are quite a few, as I alluded to, as well as Igor on the onset of his demo. But just some key opportunities that really jump out just when we talk to our customer base and how they're utilizing DocLink. We kind of did a quick poll with them and see where they're utilizing DocLink, and much to our surprise is yes, they're using it in AP to start, but a lot of them have taken that leap and moved into HR, right? HR, there's a lot of documentation, a lot of secure documentation that only employees need to have access to, because it is personal information, W-9s, etc., or W-2s, excuse me, things like that, where customers or employees need to access that information, and they can, because DocLink can manage all that for them. HR needs documents signed. Maybe there was a pay increase or merit increase. Document needs to be signed. They can actually send it via workflow for them to agree to, approve, and then it'll be stored in their human resource file, if you will. Field service is a big one as well. We see a lot of field service coming up with our web client, mobile, being able to take access a work order while on site, while on a job site, whether to upload or just view the work order. That comes in very, very handy for a lot of our field service organizations out there. Contract management with integration to DocuSign. We have that as well. And I would say one other one that jumps out is sales order processing. This is a big one. SOP is a big one. We see this time and time again as well. And because of our integrations and because we have the ability to do some output function, as I mentioned, we can handle most sales order process type scenarios and manage that document and manage it cradle to graves as well, right? And some other things that kind of fold into the AP scenario are going to be the corporate credit card and expense reports. But these are some that jump out and a lot of our customers are doing today that I like to always share with you, because these are other areas that you could see. The AP demo that Igor just showed, those modules that are used, the workflow, the document capture, things like that can be spread across the enterprise and used in these other aspects, not just for AP. So you're initially buying in for AP, but you're essentially buying a solution that can cover the enterprise with some configuration on the back end, which is very easy to do. So a couple customer evidence of what some of these things have taken place I wanted to share quickly, right? So one of these is Tyler Technology, right? So Tyler Technology is they're actually a software company, and they actually help state and local government as well as schools from kindergarten to high school. And they have a lot of employees, and a lot of those employees have ACHs, and they would send out those remittances at the end of every week. And so the delivery of those, just the postage itself, was quite a bit of money. It was $11,000 annually when they ran the total. So what they did is they started using DocLink to output this information. So they used our distribution pack to package up the information they needed, and they'd send that out automatically. It reduced postage by $11,000, which was an easy win. We found out they had a bunch of off-site storage as well, so we were able to eliminate that. We sped up a lot of time, gave them a lot of time back in the day. Not only that, we actually saved them a ton of money, right? Just be able to distribute documents. And so this could happen for your organization if you ever want to distribute a document of any sort. The next is an HR kind of example along with AP. So this is a great example. Is during the sales cycle, this supermarket chain is called Econo Supermarkets. They're based in Puerto Rico. They're a big chain down there. The interesting thing here is, as usual, this started in AP, right? They came to us because they had an AP pain, AP solution. As they went through the sales cycle, as they sat through the demos, the questions started popping up. Well, what can you do in HR? What can you do this in HR? Can you do that in HR? And lo and behold, this started as an AP solution, which ended up becoming more of an HR solution, right? We were able, because the Econo Supermarkets have turnover, right? So we were able to create a resume bank for them, so where they could log in and find, clerks, butchers, things like that for their supermarkets with a couple clicks of a button, keep resumes for an extended amount of time. That way, if there is turnover on the onset of a hire, they can easily backfill that relatively quickly. And then they had a lot of legal documentation that went with each employee. These are HR type documents, and they needed to be stored for each employee. So with them having, hundreds and hundreds of employees, and these onset packets of employee packets, if you will, that are 125 plus, they had to store those somewhere. So they stored these in DocLink, right? Now they can just type in an employee's name. They can pull all those documents up, and they have it in a seamless manner. So again, what started in an AP solution easily transitioned to an HR solution just by them realizing during the demo that, hey, we could use document storage, we could use workflow, we could use approval, all for HR, which is great, right? And then one other one that I like to kind of hone in on for HR as well is a franchisee, Desert de Oro Foods. So they have a bunch of Taco Bells. And as you can imagine, in fast food, there is a lot of turnover. So there was so much turnover, and to bring on a new employee to go through all the paperwork, it was just challenging, and they're trying to figure out a better way of managing this. So they came to us and they said, hey, look, this is our issue. We have a lot of employees that are turning over. We have a lot of onboarding, and then we have to audit all this documentation that belongs to the customer. Is there any way you can help? Of course. So I walked through their business process. We built a solution, and it really is honed in, and it's created this seamless back end for the HR department. So they were able to actually not have to add headcount to help manage this stuff. They're able just to use the software, and now they're up and running, and they've been using it since 2008, excuse me, and you know, it's never been better for them, and they're actually one of our biggest supporters and very reliable reference for us when it comes to HR type case studies. So I always like to use these guys because they're a great story. So I just wanted to share a couple customer examples with you outside of just that traditional AP stuff, because as I mentioned, we kind of focused on that today, but I want to make sure I drive home the fact that we are much more than just an AP solution, right? So you start an AP and then you can spread that cost across the enterprise very easily. So what I want to kind of wrap up here with is why DocLink. So we're a world-class product. We've been around for quite a while. We have rapid implementations. We have outstanding customer support. I think that's a big one for us. I like to tout our support team because we are available 365, 24/7. We have customers worldwide, so we have to be available at any point in time. As you can imagine, DocLink can become a pretty big lifeline in the organization, so we don't want you down at any point in time. And if you are, call our support. We usually get things resolved within a 30-minute window, if not sooner. We try to get any issue taken care of immediately, if possible. So one last little poll I want to run real quick before I turn it back over to Allie for questions is, you know, why did you sign up for this webinar, right? Are you just trying to gain some knowledge? Maybe you're killing a little time, right? Just given the fact that you're remote, right? Your boss made you. Really just curious as to why you joined, and if you want to learn any more, don't hesitate to reach out to the folks at TM Group. They can organize a demo, get me on a phone call, we can walk through some stuff. But yeah, so I do appreciate it, and what I want to do now is I'll leave up the TM Group contact information, but I would like to hand it over to Allie and see if we can get a couple questions addressed. We do have some time remaining here. So Allie, any questions come through during the presentation?
Thank you, Kurt. We did have a few come through. The first one being, just to clarify, can smart forms be used for any type of documents? And are there any restrictions on how many you can have?
Oh, great question. Yeah, so smart forms can be used for pretty much any type of document, and there are zero restrictions. So when you purchase that module, you can use it for just one form or one smart form, if you will, or you can use it for 100. It really is up to you. There's no limitation.
Awesome. The next question being, how many years of invoices do companies typically store in DocLink?
It's really up to that organization. I think kind of most of the time we hear about 7 years or so, and then they can start purging from there. But again, it's going to be, you know, it's vertical driven sometimes. It's mandated by states or local governments, and we just follow those rules. But at the end of the day, we don't do any purging. We allow the customer to do that, so they're the ones that choose when a document can be purged or not.
And then when a year of invoices are moved off of DocLink, where does it go?
I guess I would need to clarify the question a little bit, but if it's you're simply just getting rid of a document after its time has come through fruition, it would be deleted. If you are trying to print or anything like that, it would just be sent to your local printer. I don't know if I addressed that question properly, but if any more detail needs to be provided, we can have more dialogue after this.
Yeah, this is Igor. Just let me quickly dive on that. So typically the process is to move documents into a workflow from where it is reviewed and moved out of DocLink. And moved out of DocLink means deleted, or you can store it for a long-term storage on another service, but you don't need it in the document management itself. So the bottom line, we can purge documents, and purge will mean exactly what you mean by purging as a customer.
Thank you, Igor.
Thank you. Just a few more questions here. Is DocLink installed on its own server, or can it be installed on a server that is running other applications as well?
Yeah, it would be stored on either or. It could be stored on an existing server running other applications, or it can be stored on its own. And we typically will have this on premise, or it could be hosted by a third party. We do not provide hosting of DocLink at this time for Dynamics GP. For other cloud solutions, we do.
Okay, thank you. And is the application web-based or is it mobile friendly?
It is mobile friendly, and we do have the web client as well.
Awesome. And can DocLink integrate with other billing systems?
Yeah, it can. You know, we would just need to have some further dialogue along that, but we can integrate into a lot of different you know, third-party applications out there. It just depends on the level of integration, which warrants a phone call or discussion. That's all.
Well, awesome. That was our last question for today. So I just want to give a
Cool.
huge thank you to you, Kurt and Igor, for presenting today. And if anyone has any questions about the presentation, please email myself, Allie P at tmgroupinc.com. And yeah, just I hope everyone has a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone, and thank you, Allie.
Thank you so much.